And now for something completely different.
Forget everything you've been told by others before. Get ready for the real deal, the full story, real talk about money, markets, life. Now, it's The Real Investment Show, presented by RIA Advisors.
Listen, we're here, okay? That's all I got for you this morning. No! Welcome to the party. The money party. Financial Fitness Friday. Rich Rosso, Danny Ratliff, CFP. A British woman squandered $2.2 million in lottery winnings in just 8 years. And Danny, she says she doesn't regret how she spent her cash. She had a great time. Good for her. I got one word, but I can't say it on it.
Hey, at least she's not remorseful. I mean, yet, right?
People kept saying I was stupid, pumped full of plastic surgery and needed my kids taken away. But the fact is, I spent it wisely and had a great time. Spent it wisely.
Wish we could get a breakdown of what she spent this on. I mean, honestly.
Well, the first thing she did was she took a 10-day trip to Dubai.
Okay. Honestly, that's 8 years. That's probably better than most.
Yeah. And she got a nose ring.
I mean, no, honestly. I mean, I've seen people go through it in much quicker fashion.
Then she had 30 pre-owned cars, 15 designer handbags as investments.
Wait a second. $2.2 million can buy you 30 cars?
Yeah. Well, depends on what kind of cars you're buying.
Shoot.
8
30,
years
though,
later,
that's an investment.
The husband is gone and the money is gone. But she still has the nose ring.
Well, I hope she bought them in 2019 and she sold them last year, right?
Yeah. Smart decisions.
But I'm sure that's exactly how it went, right?
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of something Brent put on my computer this morning. If you can't be a good example, then you'll just have to serve as a horrible warning. And that was a good story for that. So, Jenny, your president has taken away all our drilling in Alaska. So now U.S. gasoline prices have risen 60 cents this year because Saudi Arabia and Russia said, hey, we command the oil market and we're not going to do anything for you. Employment in oil and gas extraction is 15% lower than before the pandemic. How you doing with that news?
Well, I'm sure we're looking to fill up the SRP very quickly with these prices.
I don't know.
Excuse
I'm
me,
at a loss
SPR.
for words today. Listen, this makes me look forward to the progression planning that I'm doing for myself. We're going to be doing a webinar, a Candid Coffee, Saturday, September 30th at 8 o'clock. Progression planning for a life well lived. Now, I understand this is a little bit of a word salad, but this is end-of-life planning. But we're putting a different perspective on it, right? It's clearing emotional hurdles, communicating your wishes, documentation you need, steps to take, just the kind of riveting information you need on a Saturday morning. Because then that afternoon, you're going to work on your progression plan right after the kids' games. Right, Danny?
Of course.
What do we got this morning? Dow down 26. You know, this market's been like the fish, that fish, flounder, floundering. So, Brent loves my dad jokes. Danny's like, I don't know about that flounder joke. That sunk. That went right underwater. I don't know. This could be a pretty frustrating month for the market, Danny. I mean, got to digest some of those gains we've had. It's nice to see NASDAQ maybe cool off a little bit. So it's just going to be, it seems like it's rudderless, right? We have to see what catalyst we're going to have as we go into maybe the more favorable part of the season for the market in November.
Yeah, I think people are waiting for, fourth quarter. That's historically a better part of the year. However, a lot of information, like you said, to digest. I mean, we're getting conflicting data with jobs numbers over the last 2 weeks. Had some revisions done, which are pretty eye-opening.
Yep.
And that just makes you think, what's the next revision that we see? And how accurate are these numbers right now? Last week was, showed that maybe the job market was a little bit looser than expected. This week, a little bit tighter. I'm not sure the market knows exactly what to do. Now, with that being said, we're just talking about short-term market trends right now. And typically, September's decent after a poor August. Now, in general, September's been a little bit weaker month of the year.
Yes.
But maybe it's different. Who knows? I don't see any major catalysts in front of it, that are going to say, hey, just bring it down unless we get something that we just don't know about. Or the Fed comes out and says, hey, we're going to continue to hike. But the chance of them hiking this next go-round is like 93% probability that they don't do anything at all. Now, does that mean this is one of their pauses? Or what did they call it? They didn't even call it a pause last time. What they call it? They called it a reprieve for a month?
Some kind of word.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who puts their stuff together. Oh, yeah, and to your point, I think it's all driven by the Fed. The latest numbers might show us that the Fed will wait. Although it is concerning that I do think that inflation is starting to tick up. We're actually seeing energy prices up. So maybe they are in wait and see data, more data dependent, and the data is working in their favor. It's just obviously slower than we've all anticipated, which again, that should be that story's out there, right? That's this slow roll in these numbers, but it looks like they're finally heading in the right direction. And as long as they're heading in the right direction, the Fed might be more data dependent and wait. Now, we start to see numbers go in the opposite direction. Now that's going to be a problem. So the government shutdown, Danny, we always talk about this because this is looming again. It's never really a big issue for markets, right? We always discount it. But again, see, I'm going with my gut on a lot of this stuff. I don't feel like this time might be a little different. Like, in other words, I really do think because of the division and because of how we've spent money, like this woman, like actually we could put the woman that spent that $2.2 million, like I would be more comfortable with her in our government than what's going on. She's an amateur on spending money. So do you think this time maybe, or just because there's a obviously election coming next year, do you think that maybe this one lasts a little longer and there's more of a stand for reform and putting the brakes on spending and let's shut it down, everyone. Let's shut it down. I don't know how serious maybe this one is going to be. I'm feeling in my gut that this one might cause a little bit of a ripple through markets.
So you mean the next potential budget discussion?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's usually a non-issue for markets, right? I mean, markets usually it's a little speed bump. We go through this exercise all the time, but I don't know if it's going to be that way.
Well, they've raised the debt ceiling 79 times since 1960. I mean, it's something that they'll inevitably get to. But being that we're getting closer and closer to election time, I think we're going to see more contentious, rhetoric going back and forth. So I don't disagree, but I also think that cooler heads will prevail. This will be addressed, and I think they have to because they don't want to be the ones on the other side of this saying, "Well, hey, look what these idiots did," right?
So the word of the day is flounder.
Floundering.
We'll be right. Not the guy from Animal House.
Ah, man, that's just where I was going to go. I would have had you on some type of, pop culture.
We'll be back.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet at realinvestmentadvice.com.
How do you follow up on a life well lived? How about a life well planned? Our next Candid Coffee will prepare you for progression planning for a life well lived. Saturday, September 30th with Danny Ratliff and Richard Rosso. We'll share how to prepare emotionally, financially, and pragmatically. Register now at realinvestmentadvice.com. The Progression Planning Candid Coffee with Ratliff and Rosso. Saturday, September 30th. realinvestmentadvice.com.
Hi, Lance Roberts here. If you're like most people, your 401k plan represents the bulk of your retirement assets, and unfortunately for many, managing your 401k plan can be difficult. There's so many choices, so many things to consider. With just a quick email, a couple of questions, you can put RIA advisors to work for you managing your 401k plan. Get started right now at the website, realinvestmentadvice.com, or simply call our toll-free number, 855-RIA-PLAN, or again, simply online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Small businesses are discovering that attracting and retaining top talent come down to more than just salary. In today's highly competitive job market, compensation is more than just wages. Hi, I'm Tom Allen, RIA Advisors Retirement Plan Consultant. Healthcare and retirement plans can make the difference in hiring and retaining the best employees. We can show you how to build an affordable, effective employment package that delivers true value for your workers and your business. Call me toll free at 855-RIA-PLAN or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
And now, another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. Bulls win in bull markets. Bears win in bear markets. Eagles soar above and take advantage of opportunity. Let us help you soar as you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show.
I think it was Flounder with Dean Wormer in Animal House when he goes, when he's with, and the Dean goes, "Don't you have anything to say, young man? It looks like you have something to spit out." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa," and throws up all over.
Is Animal House kind of like what the Congress looks like on a regular basis?
No, it's not that much fun at all.
I don't know.
I think Animal
They
House
seem to
is
wanna
a
keep
heck
getting-
of a lot more fun.
Yeah, I think these guys are having fun.
I don't know if you could remake Animal House today.
I mean, nobody wants to leave. Clearly, they're having some type of fun.
Well, all I'm going to say is let the cards fall where they may. Energy prices, crude's up this morning, Brent crude, natural gas. Dow futures down 49, NASDAQ futures down 32. You know, this whole derailing of Apple with this China issue, I think might be overdone. We'll see how that works out today. Listen, I think a digestion of what we've seen and a sort of a consolidation of markets, I don't think is a bad thing. I think we work off some of the overbought conditions, especially for tech, right? So even though you might feel frustrated as an investor as you go through this month because nothing is happening, believe me, this digestion period, like you sitting down after a big Thanksgiving meal and just sitting there and letting things happen.
I think
That's not a
investors
bad
are
idea.
frustrated in general. I mean, I think that if you're not invested in just the overall broad index or very specific companies like we've talked about, the Magnificent Seven, and you have any type of diversification, quote unquote, in your portfolio, you're probably frustrated.
Yeah,
you
your
own bonds
returns
this year, you're frustrated.
Yeah, your returns are pretty dismal.
Yeah.
I mean, in some cases, you might be at 4 or 5% overall, 6%, something like that. But you're not getting the numbers that you're seeing in the index, to Danny's point, because of the market cap weighting of the S&P. There's no right-minded advisor that is going to take all your money and place it into 7 stocks.
No, I
just
don't
not
think that
going
there's
to
anybody
happen.
that did particularly that, but I do think there's people that will chase those trends. However, the issue will
sure.
be is that, you get caught on the wrong side of this. So, okay, let's say that, you're all in tech right now. Mm-hmm. But what if you were all in tech last year?
Listen, last year you probably couldn't have gotten anybody in tech. You know what I mean? Like last year where everything was getting trashed, and nobody would have wanted it. That's the time you should have been buying it.
Well, if you were all in tech last year, down 30%, you have to
I'm
make
saying is,
42
but
just to get back to even. I
No,
think that's what
right.
most people have a difficult time understanding is that.
Right.
And at the beginning of the year, if you'd have called everybody and said, "Hey, we're going to go in all tech here," and not just tech, these specific companies, I don't think you could have made an argument for it at the time anyways. But what would most people do or say? Like, no way, I'm not touching that. So it is a very tough psychological year. And I think the markets have been interesting over the last several years. We haven't had this big run that we historically see within bull markets. We haven't seen this big secular bull market, so to speak. It's been, we get a year, then we get a down year, kind of a flat year, then we get a good year, and we get another one. Even in 2020, after the pandemic, we saw markets change really rapidly. Big decline back in February, March with the COVID, the pandemic, and then from there we saw things run up. But a lot of that, even then, was Reddit meme stocks, companies that most people didn't have any business buying.
Let's put it this way. I'm glad we do the planning we do the way we do it. That shows that over the next decade, and we started this in 2019, that it's going to take longer or your returns are going to be frustrating. Listen, if you're in the S&P, right, in 2022, what was the peak of the S&P? Like 4,800?
Yeah,
what are you at right now? 4,400?
Yeah.
Right? So go back 1-2 years and see what kind of returns you've gotten in the market. So as cycles elongate, you're going to see lower returns just based on valuations. It's just math. So this volatility, this whipsawing is something we built into our planning so that, because this is what we've been expecting. And when I did this in 2019, I did it in 2003, I did it in 2012. I've readjusted forward-looking returns for asset classes. I sort of look stupid for a year or two. But we have to prepare clients adequately for this and make sure that they understand that they might be in for a headwind for returns on a longer term basis, on a year-to-year basis. Listen, nobody remembers, Danny, what the market did last year. No one's going to look back and say, oh, well, the S&P didn't even make it back what it's lost. You know what? No one's going to talk about that. It's just like, what have I done this year? Like it's in a vacuum regarding the longer term trend of how things look. I think if you look at a 60-40 portfolio over the last 3 years, it might be up, 3%?
Yeah.
Annualized? I mean, that's maybe those are the kinds of returns that you need to expect over the next decade.
Yeah,
even though
hope
from
not.
year to year you might look like a superstar or a jerk. It's the longer term trend is going to be what's going to hurt you or help you in your markets for the returns you need to hit your goals. So you better be planning realistically, everybody. That's what I'm saying. Don't be buying this bucolic, I'm going to get 10% a year for the rest of my life in a 60-40 portfolio. It's not going to happen with valuations.
No, it's
the way
never
they are.
happened on that portfolio.
So, and if it does happen and you prepare adequately and people are still nuts, well, you'll have more money to spend. That's a great conversation to have with you, as opposed to, well, I know Buc-ee's is hiring. Yeah, which is fine with me. I'm happy to go there. But you don't want to be telling somebody sitting across the desk as a professional and say to somebody, I thought you were going to make it, but based on the market returns, we needed these pristine market returns to get you to your goal, but that didn't happen. So now something has to change. You're going from a 4% withdrawal rate to 2%. Or can you work part-time? Do you need to spend so much? Well, this is a fine how do you duty. And Brent's like, take the radio away from him right now. Take that mic away. So I'm saying you got to prepare realistically. Did you see healthcare premiums, what they're going to be going up when you're getting your package for enrollment in your company plan? Did you see where healthcare premium is going to be up at least 6%?
Yeah.
This year?
Well, and on average, I think they're going up, 5.3,
We've got it at like 5.5.
Yeah.
So this year, 6%. So companies are going to be passing a lot of that on to you. We're not even talking about that as far as the financial distress you're feeling over inflation. We're not even talking about what your enrollment package is going to look like and what costs are going to be going higher for you in that sense. This is the biggest jump in years, 6.5% or higher in health plan costs. This is according to major benefits consulting firms Mercer and Willis Towers Watson. They were saying this is a Wall Street Journal article. It's much worse than we've seen over the last decade, said Elizabeth Mitchell, chief executive of the Purchaser Business Group on Health. It comes out of wages and core business. The employer plan increases are expected to strike businesses of all sizes, and regardless of whether they rely on an insurer to handle their health care coverage or self-insured. And employers are expected to take the lion's share of the increase because the labor market's so tight. But eventually that's going to slip. And they got all kinds of stories about small businesses that are getting hit with a 24% health coverage increase, 20%. So that is something we're not calculating into what's going on, along with stubborn inflation rates. Also, what's going to be happening when you get your enrollment package for the new year.
Well, I mean, employers are getting hit. I mean, you think about what's going on with that, with healthcare coverage, with just the cost of keeping employees. It has become so much more expensive to employ somebody. But then you got to think what happens in, 2.5 years or less when we see this tax code change and taxes go back up for small businesses and businesses in general. Now they're getting hit even harder, right? We've grown accustomed since 2017 to this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Mm-hmm. People are going to have to start preparing now.
Yes, absolutely. Because these marginal rates that have been so generous, 22, 24% rates, are going to squeeze down. And some of these things are going to change. So your tax rates are going up, healthcare expenses are going up. And we also know because people who listen to this show are smart, or in the YouTube channel know that just because inflation might be at 3.2 or 4 or whatever the PCE is, that's just the rate of change on a higher plateau. Those prices that are higher are now going higher, just not at the same speed. So
I think that's an important point, because a lot of people do have questions like, well, hang on, nothing's getting any cheaper.
You might want to talk for the economist for the White House. He doesn't really understand that.
No, yeah. Well, I'm not sure any of them actually truly understand this, unfortunately. That's why we're in such a problem. But I think the issue that most people need to understand is that, listen, if inflation goes from 9 or 6 to 3, that doesn't mean we're going backwards. It just means it's slowing down. That's it. And which is still good. So we have disinflation, not deflation.
The rate of the rate of change is slowed down because we can't. The companies don't have the pricing power that they did before.
So what happens when you continue to see this higher? I mean, there's inflation, right? Inflationary pressures within healthcare. You're seeing inflation with wage growth.
They said automobile insurance coverage is up over probably 17%.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 years.
But think about all the different things that employers are getting hit with. Not everybody, right? Consumers as well. What happens from there?
Well, if the labor market's tight, the problem is it's going to eat into margins for bigger companies, right? It's going to eat into your profits because you can't pass too much on to the employees. But there's going to be a point where they're going to have to share in the pain. That's where I worry about what the Fed will absolutely do, even though they're going to pause now. I think they're ready to pull the trigger again on another rate hike if they have to. They're going to keep their options open. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about pre-Medicare planning, right? Healthcare costs are expensive. What if you're going to retire at 62 or 63? What are you going to do for healthcare? When we get back, we're going to talk about that. Stay tuned.
Real Investment Advice blog. It's required reading for the informed investor. Catch it today at realinvestmentadvice.com.
How do you follow up on a life well lived? How about a life well planned? Our next Candid Coffee will prepare you for progression planning for a life well lived. Saturday, September 30th, with Danny Ratliff and Richard Rosso. We'll share how to prepare emotionally, financially, and pragmatically. Register now at realinvestmentadvice.com. The Progression Planning Candid Coffee with Ratliff and Rosso. Saturday, September 30th. realinvestmentadvice.com.
Health and financial security touches everyone within your organization. Offering benefits for all doesn't need to be complicated. Hi, I'm Tom Allen, Senior Benefits Consultant at RIA Advisors. RIA Benefits provides independent expertise to find solutions that speak to the mission of your business, the culture you want to establish, and the budget you are able to work within. Book a free consultation with me at realinvestmentadvice.com/retirement, and we'll find a solution that takes care of your most important asset, your people. realinvestmentadvice.com/retirement, realinvestmentadvice.com.
In 1999, a parafiduciary group of financial advisors were busted by corporate giants for trying to operate in their clients' best interest. These men promptly escaped from a high-cost margin environment to the Houston Energy Corridor. Today, still excoriated by their former employers, they survive as protectors of others' fortunes. If you have a problem about preserving capital, if no one else can help, and you can find them right here, maybe you should hire the RIA team.
Can't catch the whole show now? Listen to our podcast later at realinvestmentadvice.com.
My wife has an ongoing battle with anything with the Ziplock on it. She cannot, for her life, operate a Ziplock. I will know that my wife has been into the cheese because she will have cut the top off the bag entirely.
The Real Investment Show podcast.
You know, my wife's always threatening to come back after she passes away. She's always threatening to come back and haunt me. I just figured out I'm going to bury her in a Ziploc bag. She'll never get out.
Never get out.
At realinvestmentadvice.com.
Come back to haunt me after the show this morning.
And now, another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. Manage risk and volatility rather than trying to manage gains. You don't have to be right all the time. Long-term investing success is a 70% gain. Let us help you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Real Investment Show podcasts are now available from Stitcher Smart Radio at Stitcher.com.
Hi, Lance Roberts here. If you're like most people, your 401k plan represents the bulk of your retirement assets, and unfortunately for many, managing your 401k plan can be difficult. There's so many choices, so many things to consider. With just a quick email, a couple of questions, you can put RIA Advisors to work for you managing your 401k plan. It's a quick and easy application. Just simply click Ask a Question at realinvestmentadvice.com or give us a call at 855-RIA-PLAN. That's realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show YouTube channel has all our videos ready for your easy access. Now with the new and improved Before the Bell reports, plus each day's radio shows. Subscribe and bookmark our YouTube channel at realinvestmentadvice.com.
You're listening to The Real Investment Show.
Me and Mrs. Roberts. I got you, Mrs. Roberts. I'm cutting the tops of all those darn things. I cannot get those packages open. Laundry detergent, cheese, whatever has that darn Ziplock that says, it's easy to open. And you press it and you pull and nothing happens. And it comes off. It's the worst. It is the worst.
Anything that requires the jaws of life to get into, I'm not buying it.
I mean, it's supposed to be easy, like you press down and you pull. And you press down and you pull, and the package is still closed. And then you press it and you pull, and then you get angry and you keep pulling, and then you got the thing in your hand. And then you get the scissor and you cut it.
Slash it.
So angry. And the Tide Pods get that open.
Yeah.
You know, if kids are going to work that hard to eat them, enjoy them.
You know what the greatest invention is? The pull tab top on canned goods.
The second just hear that.
Tried to open a can of beans last night with an old school can opener. Did not happen.
Really?
Couldn't get into it. Tried 2 different can openers to get into it.
You're like Geraldo trying to get into, like, Capone's vault.
Yeah.
Except you had something in there.
It was awful.
So what you mean? So because it's so vacuum sealed, you're talking about the pull tab. You couldn't get it open.
It's just a hard can to get into. So I told my wife if
There's
it doesn't have a pull
there's a
tab
country
on it,
song in there,
Yeah.
somewhere. It's a hard can to get into.
Listen, guys, you're just that much closer to not performing activities of daily living. Okay.
Yeah, I am.
You've got one down. Okay, eating. We're gonna work on. I'm gonna be watching you two.
You better get those long-term care
Goodness
policies.
gracious.
extra assistance needed now.
And then I look like Jason from the horror from Friday because I'm stabbing the darn thing. I am like, you know what? If it's this child-proof, if your child needs this kind of proofing, you got a problem.
How hungry are you that you can't do this properly from the get-go?
Not that hungry because I'm starving by the time. I mean, sometimes I give up.
Well, that may be part of the problem. You're hangry already to begin with.
I think that may be the issue.
You should be able to press down and pull, and it opens.
Yeah.
That's how it should. Easy. Press, slide it along the top, it opens. No, it's a tease. You press it, you slide it, and it's still closed.
Or you can't get it to close once you've opened it. You need to seal it back up.
No,
And
go
you try
ahead
to
and
seal
try
it
going
again,
the other way
and it
once you do. Go
pops
ahead.
open all
I
the
dare
time.
you.
I
I
think
dare.
that's more frustrating than the.
But either way, it's not working.
So what do? You go get a Ziploc bag then and put
No.
it in the Ziploc bag? So you're doing the same thing?
You use a scissor and you get one of the clips and you clip it. You
Or,
get one of those
or
chip
saran
clips.
wrap. Just wrap
or
it in saran wrap. Yeah.
It's a really, it's
doesn't
a
seem too efficient to me.
sad state of affairs.
Well,
when
I'm
it
glad
comes-
we got this cleared up. The important issues we address here daily on this show.
All right, so hey, there's your multi-billion-dollar idea. Create something that is easy for
jaw of life.
Brent, Lance, and Richard to open.
The jaw of freshness. No, Lance obviously doesn't have a problem. He's so special. He doesn't cry like a little girl when he's got to open that darn thing.
This is what happens when you age in place, guys.
Well, he knows karate.
Yes, it does. We're aging in place right here in the studio. You're witnessing it right here. Really, it's a shame.
Gordon hit it, though, on the YouTube chat.
What do you say?
Rheumatoid arthritis. That's the problem.
Oh, well, I don't have that. I still can't open it.
Stand by.
What if you do?
Not much.
That affects your brain?
It affects your hands.
Your hands. You're not going to be
I
able
know, I'm joking.
That's why you can't
Gosh.
operate a Ziploc. It's because you've got arthritis.
My gosh. Someone who can figure out that issue is going to be worth a lot of money. Speaking of a lot of money, if you're going to retire before Medicare age, and some people have the daring gall to do it, they're doing proper planning. They're trying to figure out what is the healthcare bridge cost to get to Medicare, right? So very expensive, especially if you're going to go into the marketplace, right? Maybe you get on a spouse's coverage. So it takes careful planning. But guess what? You have to plan before you go on Medicare, too. So pre-Medicare planning is important. So we have a lot of clients that start pre-Medicare planning maybe 6 months, 6 to 8 months before they're ready to go, so that they understand that even though Medicare is some way to control your healthcare expenses, because you're going to know what your premiums are, that you still need to prep. And these are some rules that are one of the great resources we use for Medicare planning, because our firm we do not hide from Medicare planning. We hug it. We embrace it because you need it. First is your doctor may not accept Medicare. That is a caveat to watch for. And so Danny, I think this is more prevalent with Medicare Advantage, which is Medicare Part D, which covers pretty much everything. In the next
Part C?
Part C. Sorry, not Part D, the drug coverage. But when is it? October, we're going to start to see all our favorite stars come on TV. Joe Namath, Jimmy J.J. Walker, William Shatner, talking about the beauty of Medicare Advantage, because it's going to be open enrollment. But guess what? If you don't have a Medicare supplemental policy, or Medicare even in general, your doctor may not accept Medicare. That's something you do need to research, right? And the doctor in your Medicare Advantage might not be in your plan's network. So if you have strong feelings about keeping your doctor, you're going to need to understand this and ask those questions before you sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan, especially. And again, even if you're going to original Medicare,
either
you
one.
want to check to make sure your doctor accepts it.
Well, visit with a client this week, actually, and they were at Kelsey-Seybold. And Kelsey-Seybold offers their own Medicare Advantage.
They're pretty
HMO
closed,
plan.
right? In other words, you
It
have to
is.
go to Kelsey,
So,
yeah.
I mean, basically, if he gets on original Medicare, he will not have the ability to continue to use Kelsey-Seybold because they don't take original Medicare. But you get on their Medicare Advantage, no worries. Now, the issue with that is that closed network, primarily, there's some reciprocity with some other institutions, but primarily you are at Kelsey-Seybold. The other issue would be is that, let's say you get some type of condition, now you can't get back to original Medicare to have more open format for healthcare. And you need referrals versus, not with Medigap. I mean, so there's some very big differences. And so one thing I think that a lot of people think is like, well, I'm healthy now. Well, that's great. But what if you're not later? And, they kind of persuade us and incentivize people because they say, look, you're not going to have any premiums. They're going to be very, very low. But what happens is that may be fine and dandy for the next 5 years, 10 years. What happens when you do get some type of illness? And hopefully you never do. But let's be realistic. Most people are going to contract or get something over time. I think that's where, we need to be thinking. I think that most people don't think that far enough in advance because it's not put out there in black and white, unfortunately. It's really kind of opaque. It's very vague.
Right. So when you come across that Medicare decision, not only if your doctor accepts Medicare Advantage is even more of an issue. And to step back, and what Danny is saying too, is when you first enroll, when you're eligible, say you're not covered by an employer plan or you're going to retire, you have a window to purchase Medigap, which is supplemental. Because when you get Medicare, you are buying Swiss cheese. You've got a lot of holes that need to be filled. And that's where supplemental insurance comes in. One of the benefits of Medicare Advantage is it's just so easy. I've got everything covered. I've got my prescriptions covered. I might get a nice Fitbit. I have maybe vision. I've got dental. I've got all of this stuff. And I may not even have a premium. But my out-of-pocket could be exorbitant. And what if I want some kind of special treatment outside the network? I may not get it. So
or you do have an illness, and it takes a while for you to get the referral, for you to get into the next place. I mean,
takes a while, right?
Sometimes that's not something that we want. Now, I get it. There are people that it's a cash flow issue, and you may just say, "Hey, something's better than nothing. I need to get this." I understand.
Your guy there from Kelsey-Seybold, and there's nothing wrong with Kelsey-Seybold. I go there for one of my doctors, and I think it's great. I would like to have more choice, though. So, in other words, if I have an illness, a serious illness, and I want to get a second opinion outside of the Kelsey-Seybold circle, I want to go to Methodist or somewhere else, I guess I would have to pay for that. Look, in other words, I'm not, because everything is going to happen within that group. And that's what you have to remember with Medicare Advantage. Many of those plans are set up that way. I'm pretty sure Memorial Hermann has its own. And so you have to remember also that what if you travel somewhere and there isn't a Kelsey-Seybold? What do you do then? It's out of pocket. So Medicare or Medigap coverage, when you first enroll in Medicare, Medigap coverage, if you have a pre-existing condition, it doesn't matter. You're able to sign up for Medicare.
If you get in during your enrollment period.
During the enrollment period. You go on a Medicare Advantage first to save money, and then to Danny's point, 2 years down the road, oh gosh, I've got this cancer, and I don't really want to go to this. I want to go somewhere else for this treatment. Get a second opinion. I want to switch out of Medicare Advantage during open enrollment. I want to go back to original Medicare or Medigap. Guess what? I have a pre-existing condition. Probably not going to be able to do
Well,
it.
and that's something I think we need to talk about on the other side of this break.
Okay.
That what if you've retired, you get on Medicare, then you go back to work, and you're offered health insurance? What do you do?
Ooh, let's talk about that when we return. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet at realinvestmentadvice.com.
How do you follow up on a life well lived? How about a life well planned? Our next Candid Coffee will prepare you for progression planning for a life well lived. Saturday, September 30th with Danny Ratliff and Richard Rosso. We'll share how to prepare emotionally, financially, and pragmatically. Register now at realinvestmentadvice.com. The Progression Planning Candid Coffee with Ratliff and Rosso. Saturday, September 30th. realinvestmentadvice.com.
Hi, Lance Roberts here. If you're like most people, your 401k plan represents the bulk of your retirement assets, and unfortunately for many, managing your 401k plan can be difficult. There's so many choices, so many things to consider. With just a quick email, a couple of questions, you can put RIA advisors to work for you managing your 401k plan. Get started right now at the website, realinvestmentadvice.com, or simply call our toll-free number, 855-RIA-PLAN at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Small businesses are now being challenged by the lack of employees and how to attract and recruit the best employees. To get the better employee, you'll have to offer a better package. Hi, I'm Tom Allen, RIA Advisors Retirement Plan Consultant. Don't assume a 401k plan is too costly or complicated for your small business to offer. Let us show you how to make the most of an affordable and effective plan that will deliver true value for your business and your employees. Call me toll-free at 855-RIA-PLAN or online at realinvestmentadvice.com. That's realinvestmentadvice.com.
And now, another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. A passive investment portfolio requires active risk management. It's not a choice, it's necessity. Diversification doesn't protect against risk of loss. Let us actively help you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show.
So the U.S. Open semifinal was delayed by a climate protester who glued his feet to the ground.
These guys are getting more and more creative, Rich.
My perspective is, why don't you just leave him there? If you're going to glue yourself to something, let's see how long you can last. We'll check back with you in about 6 months. Let's see how things are going. So it could be like a new form of one of those survival shows. Climate protesting and afraid, as opposed to naked and afraid.
Survival activist.
Yeah. You're going to glue yourself to a Van Gogh. We're going to Van Gogh. And we'll check on you in about 6 months. We'll see how you're doing. That'll teach you. So that was at Arthur Ashe Stadium. So that only 30 minutes. You would think it would take longer to cut him off at the ankles and leave the feet there. Somebody had a really good buzzsaw to take care of that.
Great healthcare.
What was his name? Stumpy?
He's got a shirt on that says, "End fossil fuels. Be Fred Flintstone." No, I added that.
Polyester shirt.
And if you have no feet, you can't drive your car if you're Fred Flintstone. So keep that in mind. So, and then Medicare Advantage is absolutely not going to sew your feet back on. So that's a problem. So we were talking about that, and we were saying there's this enrollment period. And listen, there are multiple enrollment periods based on if you're working or not. 20 more employees. The company has 20 more employees. Do you sign up for Part A? Listen, it's an alphabet soup. You need an advisor to help you through who understands the process. Because if you miss your open enrollment and you haven't done it in a year, you get penalized. And these penalties are permanent. But what were you saying, Danny, about the going back? So say I'm really upset. I don't like my Medicare Advantage plan. Screw you, William Shatner. And I'm going to go back to original Medicare, right? Which means I'm going to go from Medicare Advantage to Medicare A and B, which is your base coverages, are your base coverages. So,
well, you get your one guaranteed coverage period, and that's going to be either your general enrollment, your special enrollment period, that you need to make sure that you take advantage of. And so when you get that pre-existing condition, you may not, you can't even talk. You're going to go back through underwriting. And at that point,
Right.
they're going to underwrite you. They could decline you.
Yes.
Your premiums could be sky high. I mean, there's a number of things that can happen here. But ideally, we want to make sure that you don't have to go back through that. Now, what I was mentioning just before the break was if you go back, let's say we have a lot of people that retired. And sometimes they say, you know what, I'm going to go back and contract, or I may go back full time.
Right.
And so what do we do? Should we get off Medicare?
So what you're saying is now I'm 65, 66 or whatever. And we see this happen all the time, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to work. I don't like this retirement thing. This isn't for me. Like, I know it's not for me. I don't think I could do it.
I've had a couple people just did this.
Really?
Yeah.
So now the dilemma is, wait a minute. I have an employer now, and I'm going to have an employer plan, but now I'm on Medicare. Is that what you mean?
Correct. So they're
Okay.
like, okay, I'm gonna drop Medicare, get
Drop
on the
it.
health insurance plan. It's like, whoa, hang on. Let's talk about this. And because if they drop Medicare, now they don't have that guaranteed enrollment period where they don't have to undergo underwriting. Mm-hmm. So, what we did in a couple of these cases said, hey, go back to the employer, say, listen, I'm not going to take your health care.
Yeah. We talked about this. I remember one case we talked
yeah,
about.
I'd like a bump. Can you give me a little bit of a raise?
Yeah,
to
because
offset this.
Yeah, because I can't go back and do this because then I don't get my yeah.
Correct. And I think one, it worked, a couple didn't. But I mean, hey, it's always worth a shot.
It is.
But don't go just jump off, get back on that healthcare plan if you're already on Medicare, because now you don't have that guaranteed coverage period, and that can be really detrimental. So we want to make sure that you're still going to be eligible for coverage. You're not going to pay through the roof, or be declined for that matter.
Now, I'm a new employee. I might feel hesitant to ask, but I don't think there's a problem. Danny and I talked about one of these cases, and I said, well, we just did the story about how expensive healthcare is, right? And how the employer is going to absorb it in a tight labor market. Maybe you have some additional leverage to say, I'm on Medicare already, so I don't need your health benefit. Maybe I could get a little bit something extra in my paycheck. You never know. It's cheaper than healthcare insurance for that one employee, so I don't think it hurts to ask in a polite manner. Maybe there's another perk that you can get because you're on Medicare. And I think that more employees are going to have to consider this, Danny, because I think this ageism thing, unless you're totally noodles in the brain, we want older workers. If you're 66, you're not old. And I cannot tell you how it drives me wacky crazy doodle when someone who is 66, 67 says, I'm old. I can't do that. I'm old. I'm like, listen, you're as old as, how's your health? How's your mental acuity? Are you active? Don't sell yourself short. So you have a lot of older Americans, but they're still sharp. They still stay active. They want to go back to work. So as an employer, I might think, I might have some older employees here, and if they're going to get their coverage through Medicare, one, at least I don't have to absorb that cost when they are out, but maybe I can do something a little bit extra for them.
Yeah, it never hurts to ask. And keep in mind, this is the example we're giving you right now. Somebody who actually retired, got on Medicare, then decided to go back to work. Now, you could be 66 years old and be working, go from one creditable plan to the next, and still keep that.
In other words, you didn't leave.
Yeah. You're still on creditable plans, so no big deal in that instance. But if you stop, you get on Medicare, then getting off, you lose that guaranteed period. So be cautious with that. But contact, if you have questions on this stuff, go to realinvestmentadvice.com, go to ask a question. Happy to give you guys some thoughts or help. Or there's many resources out there, but just make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's when it comes to this, because this is one thing we don't want to screw up with the cost of healthcare in general. I mean, it's through the roof.
It is. And these are important decisions. And frankly, it's confusing. Medicare is confusing. Like one of the things you got to keep in mind is if you're working for an employer, and it's not to Danny's point where I left, but I'm still working for creditable coverage. I have 20 more employees, which means I don't have to get on Medicare. And I contribute, and Danny a little bit more. He's got a little fixation with the HSA, health savings account. That he's got a little problem. He's got as a boy, instead of having a poster like Farrah Fawcett over his bed, he had a poster of the HSA bank. That's just what he did. It's his thing, okay? When on his honeymoon, he visited the HSA bank. Michelle wasn't happy about that. So I'm saying, if you don't have to go on Medicare, and like I had a case with a client the other day. She goes, well, I should go on Medicare Part A because that's free. I said, well, you work for a big organization. You're 67 years old. You work for a big organization. Are they telling you to do that? I talked to my benefits administrator, and they said, it's no big deal. I don't have to. I said, but you're contributing to your HSA, your health savings account. You're maxing that out, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to build that up over time and touch it in retirement. We're going to leave it alone like a healthcare retirement account, like a 401k for healthcare. And she goes, yeah. I says, then what, if you sign up for Part A, what happens? If she does sign up for Part A, yet she's a great saver in the HSA, what happens, Danny?
Yeah, so you actually need to stop that 6 months prior to contributing to or getting on Medicare, because then those contributions can be disqualified. So essentially, you null and void the tax benefits that you get within that HSA. So make sure that if you have an HSA and you're about to get on Medicare, now sometimes this is just unplanned. Maybe you're let go. But when it happens, be cautious, because if you can plan for this, we want to stop those contributions 6 months prior to you hanging it up and getting on Medicare.
And if you have to make a choice between the HSA and going on Part A, it's the HSA. You do the HSA, unless your employer says, listen, you have to do this, right? And so you're going to have to back out. If you have to, then you're going to have to back out some of those contributions. And there's going to be a 6% over-contribution penalty. Every year the contributions and the investment earnings remain in the account. So to me, the HSA funding, Danny, is always a priority over Part A if it's just my choice and not my employer saying, listen, you should be on Part A.
Yeah, I agree 110%. So keep in mind, HSA, what we're talking about is a health savings account. You have to be on a high deductible health insurance plan, which many more employers are offering. You can't put a ton of money into it. So individual, you can put $38.50 a year. For a family, you can put $77.50, $7,750. But best account in the world. It's the only account that's going to grow, give you triple tax benefit.
I told you about the HSA bank poster.
Yeah, you know it. Hey, got one in the office too. So funds go in tax free. You're going to have tax free growth, and use them for medical expenses. You're going to pull those out tax free, and we know how much it costs for health care, just medical premiums, expenses in retirement, well over $300,000 for a couple.
The other day, Danny said he was mad at his kids. I said, why? He says, because they're not contributing to an HSA. I said, they're kids. They don't have one. That's no excuse, he says.
No excuse. None. Got to start them young, Rich.
Start them young. Roth, everything. Get them started. Listen, we love being with you here today. Lance back on Monday. We'll see you next week. Take care. Have a good weekend.